Bucko, mighty Bucko, hello, and welcome again to Mighty Bucko. Now this one, you will not have heard anyone amongst truthers talk on this. This is a one-off Bucko, this is. It's like living in a movie. Now, my friend Neil, if he said it once in the last couple of years, he's said it numerous times. You know what he says? It's like waking up in a nightmare. It's like we're in a film. It's like we're living out a film, movie, a script. And maybe you have said similar things. I've certainly said the same thing on a number of occasions, all with regards to what we've been going through with the lurgy and the knock-on effect of everything that's happened to us. Now, I want to look at it from the perspective that we are living in a movie. Why not? So, play along with me. Or act along. Remember when Hancock said, even though you've not got it, act as though you have. Right? So, let's look at it from the perspective of like a movie. Like, remember the Truman Show with Jim Carrey? He's brought up from a baby and everyone around him, his family and everyone, is in on it, and people are watching him as a TV soap. Yeah? So let's just play along and let's have a think. Now, I've got a question with that, because it is like a movie at times. It's like we know the main players in this have their scripts given to them, maybe on a weekly, if not daily basis, certainly monthly, and they play along. And we're like at times the odd time a supporting player, but more often than not, like a bit player coming on as an extra on the shopping trips, and there we come. Here's a question for you. Why is it that villains, the real sinister type, are often depicted with blonde hair and blue eyes? And by blonde hair, I don't mean sort of a very fair, light, a sort of Paul Newman type of hair, a little bit blondish but brown, light brown, mousy. I'm talking about Snow White, blonde. Now, it's perfectly true that you can get dark-haired villains, of course you can. But I will put it to you, and I'm going to bring some examples out. Some of the more sinister ones are often your blonde-haired, Snow White, blonde, blue-eyed types. Now, just remembered, going back to Paul Newman, he had a dream once, where he said, he looked at his own gravestone and it said, here lies Paul Newman, who died the day his eyes turned brown. And he did have very piercing blue eyes. Ice cold. So, you know the proverb, the men in films, generally speaking, the heroes have to be tall, dark and handsome. Yeah, your Clark Gables and your Robert Taylors, for those who remember the old movie stars, your Cary Grants. Tall, dark and handsome. And the women, of course, although you could get blondes who are villains as women, but generally speaking, they can be villains as well. But generally, they're fine as the heroine. And your Grace Kelly types, your Bridget Bardots, and Marilyn Monroe. And didn't she do a film in the 50s called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes? Yeah. So regardless whether they're natural blondes or dyed hair blonde, platinum blondes, it's what is depicted on the screen. So when it comes to the men, it's a rarity to get a blonde-haired hero. It's a rarity. It does happen. I can think of a couple of examples. I think Robert Redford would be one. David Soul in Starsky and Hutch. Yeah, there'd be another one. But by and large, the more sinister the villain, depict him as this psychopathic maniac. You're really bad villains. So, why is this? Let's ask ourselves some questions. Why is this? I go back to one of my talks that I did with Phil, where Swedes lead, turnips follow, and we looked at the cashless, and we looked at Sweden going cashless, and I touched on the Vikings. Is this because of that element of the barbarian, the violent, aggressive Viking rampaging? Is it got touches of that? Is that something to do with it in people's psyche? Or is it something more modern? Would it be something to do with Hitler's desire for an Aryan race? His Third Reich, where he wanted the blue-eyed, blonde hair, Nordic types, ice cold, obeying orders, clinical, probably. And maybe because a lot of the big film studios were run by Jewish moguls, maybe they felt to depict it that way of what many had suffered with their families and relatives in Europe, the Second World War. Maybe. Or is it even in films where there's not a connotation of not normal humans, rather science fiction and stuff? I touched in my talks on John Wyndham, Village of the Damned, George Sanders, where the children are alien but born with human mothers. Blonde hair, Snow White blonde hair. Yeah? Depicted like that. So, let's have a think. I'm going to give you some examples from a few films from the past to not to overdo the act, as it were, but just to illustrate. So let's go to the first one. Remember what I said, is it something to do with the Vikings? Right, here we have a film called Kiss of Death. It's a film noir, which is like thriller, dark, thriller, from the 40s. The hero is tall, dark and handsome, that chunky, punky Victor Mature, who played Samson in the biblical film. And the villain is played by his debut, Richard Widmark. Now, Widmark is a classic Nordic type. He's American, but with Norwegian Viking roots. All right? Now, he's got a trilby on there, so you can't exactly see him, but he's got the snow white hair and the piercing blue eyes. Good actor, Richard Widmark. But in his debut, he's a psychopath. And he pushes an old lady down the stairs in a wheelchair as he cackles hysterically with laughter. He's an absolute psycho. Yeah, that's his opening film. Richard Widmark, Kiss of Death. Now, here's another one. Another film noir. Mark Stevens is the main actor, tall, dark and handsome, again. And here's a picture of him on the back. Now guess who the villain is there out of this picture? Well, you guessed it. Now he's got some scars, Mark Stevens, there in the film, for the film, you know what I mean? But this guy is another psychopath, complete maniac. Yeah, horrible, nasty piece of work. Yeah, and here we have it again. So, do you remember, and here's one, an actor, Robert Shaw. Do you remember him in Jaws? The original Jaws in the 70s? Yeah? Well, he played two parts as maniac, psychopathic types. The first one was the Battle of the Bulge, where he played a German Panzer commander. Yeah? Complete fanatic. And equally, he played in a Bond film as the villain from Russia with Love. Again, the cropped, blonde, snow white, piercing blue eyes. We move on. Now, all the Harry Potter films have took the world by storm, haven't they? And all the young people caught up in that nonsense. But there's a guy in it called Draco Malfoy, played by Tom Felton in the Harry Potter series. And he's like the adversary of Harry Potter. A villain. Not as bad probably as some of these other guys, but you know what I mean. So notice the depiction. We've got one of Marlon Brando here. Remember Brando? In his films on the waterfront and all those films. Here he is in The Young Lions, again, as a Nazi commander. And maybe you've seen the Sylvester Stallone Rocky films and you remember Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren. He appeared in 2 Rocky films. A real villain. Yeah, notice his appearance. Christopher Walken turns up as Max Zorin in A View to Kill. Another Bond film. Another psychopath, maniac, nutcase. And on this one, Rutger Hauer in The Blade Runner, Harrison Ford, as Roy Batty. another psychopathic maniac. Now, we come to what we call reality around us. And I've got two individuals I just want to discuss for your interest. This is the first one. And this one is the second one. Now I'm going to discuss the first one first. Right? Yes. Mr. De Piffle. Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Or at least he was. Now, we were all looking on the 6th of the 6th, 6th of June 2022, 666, whether they'd pull something. The only thing that I could pick up on that date was that this guy remained in power for a while. Yeah? Now, I don't need to tell you that he is a villain. You all know he is a villain and he is responsible for horrible crimes and should be brought, really, to justice. Enough said. The powers put them in and the powers take them out. Now we come to the second one. Oh, and by the way, Johnson was in power from 2019. Now, this man was President of the United States from 2017 to 2021. They both were in power at the same time for a period of time. Now, my question to you, dear viewers, can you remember a time in history when the English Prime Minister looked like this and the American President looked like that? Now, can you? Because I can't. The nearest you go back to as an English Prime Minister would be maybe Ted Heath. And I can't remember anyone else looking like this. And American President? No. This guy is natural blonde as far as I can tell. Because you can see by his son and his brother and his dad Stanley. This man, the hair is dyed. But it's what's depicted. Now, I have never spoken a word against Donald Trump. Never. In fact, I've stood up for him so often that Jane has said to me, he's like your brother. You're defending him always. And I have done. I've never spoken badly. And I've been hoping, I was hoping for the best. Going back over a year, I had some measure of hope, like many of you, that there would be some Q plan, there would be some white hats, there would be arresting of the evil cabal. I gave up on that a long time back. Now, this man may still be the president again. The question is he a villain? Is he in the cabal? And when you come to this topic, people get very forthright and in their answers because they're either for him or against him. You're not indifferent to this gentleman. You either like him, respect him, maybe not agree with everything he says, but yes, or it's one or the other. So, is he? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to think he's a good guy. This I do know. This I do know. That they both have the blonde hair. And if we're living in a film, script, movie, then why are you surprised if the villains have blonde hair. Now, you may say, well, Bucko, you may be onto something, son. Yeah. Or I may be just eating too much pizza. Peace seeing you.